Good day, everybody. So my name is Ogenewaro Gabriel Jacovo. I will just move straight into my presentation, which is grant writing from idea development to proposal submission. So my presentation is going to cover the introduction, where I'm going to look at narrative development and time management. You may hear me use narrative or proposal, so any of the ways can go into it. So proposal is all about inclusive of everything. Why the narrative is all about your ideas, writing your ideas, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and the process that you want to that you can that you want to use to achieve what you want to do. So we're going to look at researching and planning, reviewing the criteria for the grants you want to apply to, and we are going to look at required materials and also additional materials. And after then, what happened? What about the decision? If the decision is positive, what should I do? Or if the decision is negative, what should be the next stage? So all these are what I'm going to look at in my presentation. When we're talking about a grant proposal outline what you want to do, which I call the idea. When you intend to do it, which I refer to as a timeline. So what you want to do is the idea. When you intend to do it, which is a timeline you have to follow, which is a structural plan of how you need to follow through, and how you plan to do it, which is the methodology and strategy, and also the resources you are seeking for to execute the project, which I call the budget, before you proceed to execute the budget. So the executing of the budget is the final stage, if it is positive, but if it's not positive, there's also the next stage that we can follow. But in the simplest term, a proposal outlines what you want to do, when you intend to do it, how you plan to do it, and the resources you are seeking before you proceed to execute the project. So now when I look at the narratives, talking about the ideas, putting your ideas in a legible form that can convince the funders to fund your project. So when we talk about the ideals, the idea is all about your research and the ability to convince your funder that you need their funding to execute your project. So this is a very, very important thing because most times is that we just write, and when we write from our own perspective, but without looking at the perspective of the funders to understand what are they thinking about. Because most times is that what they are thinking about, we don't really know. Because I have been in a committee when I assess grant and look at grant applications, scholarship applications, because one thing is that you have written your proposal and you have submitted your proposal to us, and we now have to see it. Don't forget, none of us have seen your proposal before. So we are coming in to look at your proposal with an objective mind because we don't know you, we don't have any relationship with you. So we are looking at it from an objective mind to say, okay, let's put all the grants together. And that's what they call the ranking system. We have to rank all the grants together. So when we talk about the idea is your ability to convince the funders that you need their help or you need their resources to execute your project. So you have to write it in a very convincing way. It's not from your perspective, you thinking that, oh, I'm very convinced I'm going to get the grant, which we're going to look at in a couple of slides, how to get to that point of getting your ideas across to the funder. And the second has to do with the idea of crafting a proposals. So we're talking about proposal. Proposal comes in different way for different project that you're looking at funding for. One, you can be writing a proposal for a postdoc, which is very common after you have gotten your PhD. You can also get funded for book if you want to write a book. For example, you are done with your PhD and you want to convert your PhD dissertation into a monograph, then you can apply for funding for that or a proposal to seek for funding. We also have proposal writing for projects such as Conversation Cafe, which is very common in medical sciences, in human sciences, and also in the humanities, where you have to study about people and let people come up with the solutions with the solution of problems that affect their daily lives. We also have intervention for musical concert, for theater production, and also for art exhibition. So when you consider there are diverse ways that we can put in our energy to ask for funding to support our project, what we do as scholars. And also the essence of crafting your proposal is to convince your funder, like I said from the beginning, that your project is worth funding among the 100 they receive. So when you are sending your proposal, you are not the only one that is applying for that project. Many other people are also applying for that project. And everybody within their own right frame of mind believe that they are potential candidates to be awarded that grant. So everybody are putting in their grant at the same time. So normally, when you're looking for a fund for funding for your proposal or for your project, there are two types of funders that are always available. One is the private funders, which they are non-governmental organization, and most times they are called philanthropic and foundational organization. And most times they normally award grants, and their grants are very short. Sometimes it lasts for like 4 months or a year. So those ones are very short, they are very concise. So when you apply for such kind of grants, for example, say you want to go for field work, for example, you cannot write that kind of grant that's okay. I'm going to do a field work for like 2 months. In the next 8 months, I'm going to complete my writing. No, they would think something is wrong because philanthropic grants are streamlined towards a goal. For example, I want to go for field work for 6 months in northern Nigeria, or I want to go for a field work project in South Africa or in Ghana. I'm going to spend 6 months there. What are you going to do within that 6 months that you are going to be there? For example, I'm going to be there for 6 months. Within that 6 months, I'm going to interview so and so person. I'm going to observe this festival. I'm going to observe this concert. Or if you are in the sciences, you are going to do some testing on the human subjects you are going to work with. So those are doable, this thing, so that because one thing that the philanthropic organization look at, their own is very short and it is tailored towards a specific need. And we also have the national, which is the government funder, government as a funder. Government as a funder usually come at institutions, like for example, in Nigeria, we have TED Fund. Most of the TED funds are localized because the university determines who gets those TED funds. But at the end, it's a burden to government funding. So we have institutional, we have local, we have regional, we have national, and we have international grants. And one thing with government grants is that they are multi-year projects, which means they can last for 2, 3 to 4 years, depending on the extent that the grantors can afford to give you. So maybe the first year, maybe you are doing your scoping review, which it is expected that before you apply for grants, you already have some layers of scoping review. But most times, the scoping review can also be part of what you want to do. So scoping review is for you looking at what have been done in the area and try to look at the lacuna and how your work fall into. The second year may be okay. For example, in my second year, I want to do conversational cafes, for example. Like if you are looking at women and gender studies, for example, I want to look at issue of divorce rates or financial dynamics within African immigrants in the diaspora. So you may want to take 1 year to look at that very stuff and look at it, in critical terms. So most time, government project is not what they rushed into. It takes time, it takes diligence, and it needs expertise to go into that. And also, some government projects are also renewable. Like, for example, if you apply for like 3 years and within the 3 years you're not able to complete it, most of the grantors also give you extension for you to apply for more to be able to achieve it. So we have one, the first one is a private, which is short, timely, and for specific. Why the government will make entails different stages of the project writing. So it entails more compared to the private one because the private one, they have specific goals, while the government one is very, very expansive. So when we talk about the narrative details now, is one thing we have to look at is the topic. So what topic are you writing on? And one thing we always talk about in terms of the topic is that your topic your topic needs to be what center on what you want to do, and it should be a catchy phrase. The catchy phrase like unravel the Pandora box that you want to open, so it gives an insight to what you want to do. So the topic should be well captivated. It could be a phrase, a long sentence, but not more than 20, 30, 40 words count. Like let's say, if you want to do a proposal, depending on you, and also they have some in-house style that the grantors or the funders already lay out on how length, how long the topic should be. But the topic should be one thing that captivates you, because one thing is that once you choose a topic that captivates you, the intensity to pursue the project is very, very well grounded compared to when you choose something that you're not proud of, then it becomes a problem for you and also for the funders to understand what you want to do. So we also look at another thing that you need to put in the narrative is your research aim, the value your research is going to add to your discipline, and also the objective of what you want to do. So in this paragraph, you talk about what you want to do, the research aim, what your research set out to do, and you look at it in holistically. You write it, okay, my project intend to examine this XYZ, and also to further a research in this area, so it is what you want to do. So your research aim is what did I really want to do in this my research topic? What did I want to do? Like we said, for example, if you're looking at philanthropic uh, funder, for example, what aim do you want to look? Are you going for field work for like 6 months or 1 year field work, which is doable, or you're going for 6 months, then the remaining 4 months you're going to do your transcribing of your data. So if that is possible, then you have to look at. And also, what is the value? What value is your research bringing to the table? Because most times is that I always see people will just come up and say in proposal, oh, nothing have been written like that before. And when you just go to a simple Google search, or for example, which we use it normally in the humanities, JSTOR, for example, or you go to googlescholars.com, for example, and you just put what this person is talking about, you find random, countless, tons of thousands of works in that very area. But even though we have thousands of work in that very area, your research aim may be different from what the person have looked before. So you have to acknowledge, yes, this thing have been done before. Somebody have written about this, but my aim is different from this person's aim because my aim try to look at this, which this person they don't look at. So that gives us a very clarity into what you are talking about, and also what value will your proposal add to society once it get funded. So that is very important. And the objective. What objective is driving you? What do you want to do? So those are very, very important. And you need to make it in a very concise and a very a good appealing way. Like in the humanities, we use the narrative style, which we call most time we usually call the prose style. You have to bring in yourself, bring in your destiny, and try to tell a story compared to in the sciences when it is very straightforward, backing it with data and upon data to prove you know what you want to do to set your aim and also your research objective and also the value your research is going to add towards the discipline and towards the common good of the society. We also have the research scope and areas. Define your scope, limit your scope as much as possible because you can't achieve everything. Because once you make your scope very wide, funders will not want to fund because they feel that, oh, this is undoable. But once you limit your scope to a specific area or specific musical tradition or specific problems confronting humanities, then it makes more sense because you have already zeroed it down. You come from the macro to the micro. So you zero it down to your scope and your area. It is very, very important. Your study you cannot research all about Nigeria in a year. It's not possible. Over in the next 10 years, it's not possible for you to travel to every village, every locality to research their musical culture. It's not possible. So you need to zone down what you want to do in your project. So it is very, very important when we talk about the research scope and also the research method and the feasibility. So what kind of method do you want to use to execute your project, for example? Are you going to do ethnographic study, which means you have to go for field work, you have to spend time in the field, you have to meet with the people, or are you just going to sit in your office, which we call the arm's length method, which means you put materials together and just synchronize the materials together and produce your ideas? So what kind of method are you intending to use? And how does that method fit into your narrative of what you want to do? Is this method suitable? Is interview method suitable? Is data collection, for example, suitable? Is open-ended questions when you're asking your questionnaire? Is questionnaire suitable for this question? And if questionnaire is suitable, is it open-ended? For example, which most people just do, are you a male or a female? Male. How old are you? 13 and all those kind of stuff. Do you need the geographical data about people? So all those are things that you can say, okay, I'm using the questionnaire method because I want to generate data to look at the outcome, for example, between obesity, for example, between male and female, or you want to look at issues about those in sciences, for example, about child mental health or immigrant problems in the diaspora. So you need a subject matters. And so you need to look at it. Okay, after you are talking about the methodology or the method that you want to use to carry out the research, then what is the feasibility of that method? How is that method feasible to your research? And how will it make you to answer your research aim? the value of your research, and also the objective of your research. And what is the output? Yeah, most time when we write a proposal, which I've said most times, we don't talk about the output of our research proposal. What is the output? What do you want to do at the end of the day? For example, you are giving like TED Fund gives you like 2 million naira, for example, or you apply for a fund in California, in Canada, or in the US or Australia, and you're asking for $50,000 and they give it to you. What they are looking for is the outcome and what they call the output or the outcome. So what will you do? For example, you have gone for your field research, you have done everything. Are you going to do a publication, for example? Are you going to do a symposium, for example? Are you going to write a book, for example? What do you want to do? What will be the outcome? Are you going to write a report that is going to guide policies, or are you going to develop a policies? So those are the critical things that are very important when you are telling your narrative. So you must dictate the outlet that you are going to put your output in. For example, if you want to write a policy, what kind of policy are you going to write, and where will who is this policy applicable to? If you want to publish 2 or 3 publications in the course of this project, what outlet are you looking at? What journal are you likely going to publish your work in? So those give the funders a very good insight into what you want to do, how you want to do it, and kind of guides them for them to give you the money. And we also talk about the literature review, which I also talk about when I'm talking about the aims and objective. What have you written about your project? What have you written about it? What have been done? And why is yours different? So you need to convince them, one, there's already existing work in the area you want to look at. Two, there's also a shortcoming in the area you want to look at. For example, when I was looking at Boko Haram, for example, there are a lot of work in Boko Haram from sciences, social sciences, military studies, and everything. But nobody have tailored Boko Haram towards the angle of music. And I said, okay, everybody have done it. Sociology, religion, conflict and peace, social justice. But I'm looking at is in the area of music, and our music try to frame the narrative of Boko Haram. So that kind of gives a very good segue. So you have to start what have been written, and also where your work is coming in, the lacuna your work is trying to fill, or what is left undone that you want to do. So that kind of gives a sense to the people, the funders, that okay, you know what you're talking about, and there's also an evidence of citation. So this is where you usually cite works that have already been done, according to Evans, for example, according to Shinwe, for example, according to Olubmi, for example. You cite works to foreground that this topic is not new, but the narrative you are bringing in is to fill a void that have not been touched by any other persons. So when I look at the workflow is very important, because when I've judged scholarship, we always look at the workflow. How much are you asking for example? And what is the timeline? Which you have to have. We also talk about the research scope, the areas, and also the method. So what is the timeline, for example, that you want to look? So for example, you're looking for like a 2 million naira, for example. Most people will just get that 2 million, for example. What if you don't do the project, for example? Normally in the diaspora, you get black spotted, but I don't know in Nigeria if they black spots you for not completing the task. So they want to know, okay, if we are going to give you this money, what do you want to use this money for? And what is the timeline? Like most of us in North America, for example, the funding is domiciled with the university. The university is the one that have that fund. The fund is there for you to assess, and the assessment of the fund is based on the contract you sign with the funders. Okay, in this first stage, okay, I need like $100,000. In the first stage, I'm going to do work with $20,000. Then once the first stage is done, you go for the second phase. So you follow a systemic timeline for you to achieve it. What we look at that is that the professional. So what we talk about that is that feedback is very important. Most time when we write our proposal, for example, we need to give it to somebody to read, which we call the peer reviewer. Send your work to a peer reviewer to read. The peer reviewer should be in 2 phases. The first are professional in your field, and the second are not professional in your field. Because most times, people who assess your proposal, most of them are not experts in your field. So you need that not expert eyes to look at what you have written for them to give you feedback. So that is very important. One professional person to go through your work and give you feedback, and also the non-professional person to go through your work and give you feedback. So we have to look at researching this. We cannot overemphasize it. The first thing you need to do is that once a funding call comes out, what you need to do is look at the eligibility criteria. What is the application deadline? And how much grant is available to be granted? For example, you're looking for like 1 million naira and they only have like 500,000. So which means if you have to cut your budget and streamline your project to meet with the 500,000 that is available. And also the word count. How many word counts are they asking for? Are they asking for 500 and yours is about 1,000? Is going to be problematic. And most of them also have formatting styles. So most of them look at the formatting, they put research aim, research objective, methodology. If they put those headlines, follow those headlines because that is where they're going to grade you based on research aim, research methodology, budget. Just follow the headline, copy the headline, and fill in the blank with what you have written based on the narrative. And also know if your proposal falls within their funding. If it does not fall within their funding, you're not going to get funded. And also familiarize yourself with their in-style requirement and evaluation criteria. And also, they also most of the fund also requires later from institution. For example, is so institution aware that you are going to apply. Don't forget, we're talking about government and private. Most of them they give the money to the institution, so the institution should be able to say, yes, this person is in our institution. We are where he's going to apply for this grant, and we are going to support him with our laboratory and everything. So they must see that very significant commitment uh, from the institution. Also, if you are example, like in the sciences, they have a multiple collaboration. They have the principal investigator and they also have the co-investigator. You need to get a letter from the co-investigator talking about their involvement in the research and how their expertise falls within what you're doing. And also your resume is very important. Your resume wants to show the funder how many publications do you have? Do you have talent? How many grants have you applied before? How much have you won before? But if you have not won grant before, it's not a red no for you not to be granted, but your resume gives them a overview about who you are and what you're capable of doing. And some also have asked for biographical skills, which talk about your personality, your education, and how it fits within what you want to do. And we also have ethical approval. Have you applied for ethics for human subject, for example? Because, for example, like me, I'm an ethnomusicology. If I go to the field to talk to people, I need to be guided by ethics. So, what ethics approval by six before going to the field. So that those are very important. And also the executive summary of everything you are going to do, including your budget, including your narrative, including the funder letter, institution letters. And also later for host, if you're going for postdoc, you need to get a letter from your host that they're going to support you. Then now we now have the next, which is likely going to be like the final talk about my presentation is a decision. So let's say, okay, you applied and your decision was positive. So what should you do? You have to review the contract. What is the contract talking about? What is the mode of engagement between you and the funder? So you need to study that. And also, if, for example, in the process of you executing your work, you cannot be able to meet the target, you can write to your funders that, okay, I encountered this difficulty, is going to cause a delay, or I'm changing my scope of study to include this scope. So you need to notify them as soon as possible. And you have to keep a communication with them and also notify them of each phases you have completed. And if the outcome is not is negative, maybe you were not awarded with the grant, that is not the end of the story. So what it means is that it's not that your work is poorly written. No, it may also indicate that they are more outstanding proposal, or the proposal is not feasible within their context, or your proposal does not align with their priorities. That could be the outcome. It's not that you have not written where you have done your best, but it's just that it does not fall within their project feasibility, it does not align with their priority, or they have many outstanding proposals at the time you apply. And also, one thing I always say, people, once it is a negative outcome, request a copy of the assessor's reviews to understand the strengths and weakness of a proposal. Because most times we don't ask for those reviewers' comments. Those reviewers' comments are very important because most times when we write for publications, for example, we get feedback from the reviewer one, reviewer two, reviewer three, stating about our strength of our work. So look at the strength of your work based on the reviewer's comment and also look at the weakness. So you focus more on the weakness of your proposal and try to strengthen it. And once it is straightened, you can reapply again for that same call the next year. And finally, conduct a self-assessment of yourself. After you have known what went wrong based on your weakness, conduct a self-assessment of yourself to identify what went wrong and how to avoid these issues in future applications. Thank you.